Welcome into this week's edition of Back to the Bullpen. Myself and Mike sit down. We talk about Framber's great start, John Singelton's just amazing game offensively, how he's doing lately, the road ahead, Justin Verlander, just so many things to talk about because the playoffs are right around the corner.
I'm looking to the bullpen to bring my lefty in. Keep the lead and make your team look pedestrian. It's in your wheelhouse, we'll swing for the fence. You know it's money around here, and I ain't talking expense. Strike one, heat low in the way, you can't hit it. You know you wanna start a rally, but you better forget it. Strike two, off speed, same spot, your car looking. Get ready at the plate, this time you're not cooking. Strike three, swinging out of the zone. You ain't even touch it first. Tell me how they gonna drive you home. Walk your back, looking like we ain't cooled in. The game's over, might as well put them back to the bullpen, oh yeah.
That's right, and we are back in the bullpen, taking it back to the bullpen with myself, H-Town Wheelhouse. You can find me at H-Town Wheelhouse on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Find me at Astros411 on X and on Facebook. You can find the show on Spotify. You can find us on iHeartRadio, on Instagram, on X, and, of course, on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. Mike Stanton, he's back. He's here. And, Mike, tell everybody where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, there's only one place, and that's on X, and it's Mike Stanton 29, the old 2-9er. That's the only place you can find me. But if you do reach out, I will try to respond promptly. Can't promise it, but I'll try.
No, yeah, definitely. Look, hey, that's how we kind of became friends.
Yeah.
I just walked up to you and said, hey, would like to have you on Locked On Astros, and the rest is history, right?
Well, it was, and I ended up doing a couple shows. Now, when you first walked up to me, I kind of looked at you the corner of my eye thinking, this dude's a little shady. I might need to call in some support, but ended up being a pretty nice guy, and here we are.
Well, I appreciate it. No, yeah, I appreciate it. You were like in your earpiece, hey, it's security. Can we take this guy out?
That's right. That's right.
No, but man, this has been a wild year for the Astros. The Astros really, gosh, I mean, we don't even need to recount or even talk about the beginning of the season. We all know how that went. They got hot. They went on this mad tear after the All-Star break. They've cooled off. They beat someone like the Royals in royal fashion, sweep them, go to Cincinnati, get their butts handed to them, come back, win 2 of 3 against a really good team, and then they lose 2 of 3 to a really bad team. And they're not necessarily hanging by a thread, but you just have all these things come up. You have Altuve, who's day-to-day with the side stitch or whatever happened. You have McCormick, who's out with a fractured finger from running into the wall. He said he'll be back by the end of the season. I mean, the hits just keep coming.
Yeah.
I know the slogan this year is relentless. That is the only way to describe this season, is relentless.
Yeah. Well, I think you could use roller coaster. We have been spoiled being Astros fans over the last, almost decade, of how good this team has really been. To tell you the truth, this is really how it's supposed to be. This is how baseball is designed. You're supposed to be on that emotional roller coaster. What that means is when you do finally get to the promised land, it just makes it that much sweeter. But they've done a great job, becoming relevant again. They're in first place. Do they have a big lead? No, they don't have a big lead. But they have a lead with just a couple weeks left here. So you got to feel pretty good about where they are. But, you're not exactly sure who's going to show up on a day-to-day basis. And today, there's one constant, and that's been Framber. Framber has been just nothing short of spectacular.
He has, and I really think it goes without mentioning that I think Framber Valdez deserves to be in the conversation for American League Cy Young. Now, he hasn't done over the course of the season what Skubal has done in Detroit. Yeah. But in the second half, you want to talk about a guy that's locked in. You want to talk about a guy that is known, not necessarily more for it, but is known for his mental breakdowns, to where you had him go rogue, that he admitted. Yainer Diaz said he went off the game plan, and now they've become a formidable battery mate for each other that it's almost like lock it in. Yainer Diaz behind the plate, Framber Valdez on the mound. The Astros are going to get a pitcher that's going to give them a chance to win.
Well, I mean, that's really the catcher's job, is to not just sit back there and shake your head yes and do everything that the pitcher wants. He's supposed to have an idea. He's supposed to have a game plan. And if that game plan doesn't mesh with the pitcher, you can have conflicts. Heck, I've seen I'm not going to use names, but I've seen pitchers and catchers, I mean, get into knockdown, drag out, haymakers, everybody jump on the pile, try and break these dudes up before somebody. It's happened many times. And I don't want to say I like it, other than you got to love the passion. And you got to love the fact that, these guys care enough that they're going to beat the snot out of each other, trying, because things didn't go the way they wanted to. And the other guy, it's just the emotion that you're playing with. Now, you obviously would love for everyone to the cooler heads to take over, but sometimes that doesn't happen. And yeah, you put that many type A personalities together, the stress of playing every day, the physical and emotional toll of playing every day. Yeah, there's gonna be fights. Nobody, listen, if you got along all the time, it would probably be boring, and you probably wouldn't be a very good team.
Well, yeah, and when you have, I mean, you've been there. I mean, you were there 19 years. When you have the best baseball players in the world competing, they're competitors. I don't care if you're on the record-setting pace White Sox. Okay, you're still competing. I mean, look, I know everybody thinks that they've thrown the towel in. Those guys aren't going out there to try to lose. Nobody loves losing. I mean, They hate losing. Now, of course, when you lose that much, it's kind of hard to get out of that funk because you just get into a mental rut. But this team, talking about that makes me think of Hunter Brown, and it's a shame that Hunter Brown, that the Astros couldn't come back and get that win.
Yeah.
Because Mike, there was an inning where he got bases loaded with 1 out, and he shut the door. And his last pitch, I mean, he reached back 2 or 3 times the last 4 pitches through 98, 99, and just yelled. And it was almost like he yelled at the dugout, like, "Come on, guys. Okay, I've done my part."
Right.
And then the offense just fell flat. Is that a little does that deflate the pitcher, or is that you just try to block that stuff out because you did your part?
No, it's not deflating.
Okay.
I mean, can it be upsetting? It can be if it happens all the time, but it hasn't happened all the time.
True.
And Hunter, just like every other player on the team, knows that, this game is hard. Hitting a baseball in Major League Baseball is the hardest thing to do in sports, hands down, period. There's no argument. There are times, and Hunter, you go back just a couple starts ago, it looked like he couldn't miss a bat to save his life. You have days like that, and then there's other days offensively, it seems like you couldn't hit the opposing pitcher with a tennis racket, much less a bat. Yeah. So, it's just the nature of the sport. So no, he was excited. That was just raw emotion coming out from him with the bases loaded. I think it was bases loaded, 1 out, and he struck out the next 2 hitters. And that was just raw emotion of getting out of that situation. And yeah, he's trying to, there may be a small part of him inside there that's trying to pump up his team and trying to, build on that momentum. But I think more than anything else, that was just him, letting out a rebel yell, saying that's because you don't get out of those very often. I think I did it once in my career.
Wow.
That I got out of. It was actually a bases loaded, nobody out in extra innings.
Wow.
And I ended up getting out of it.
I think you spoke about that before because or you either spoke about it on the show or you talked to me about it because
I was with the Yankees, and it was against the Toronto Blue Jays. And I struck out Carlos Delgado for the 3rd out, and I pitched pretty well against Carlos, but I had to get the first 2 outs also. But I think it was my 3rd inning of relief. We were in extra innings, and I was, tell me if I remember correctly, I had pitched the first 2 innings and I came in and Mel said, "How do I feel? How do you feel? Can you go another one?" I said, "Yeah, I go another one." And in like 5 pitches, I had the bases loaded.
Wow.
It was like, really, why didn't I just go to the locker room, feel good about myself?
Right.
No, I had to be the tough guy and come back out there. But it ended up being, one of my better outings in my career, just simply because I worked my way into the situation, but then also worked my way out. And there was a scream, and I was somebody that didn't do that. I would scream and yell mad on the bench when things didn't go right. But when I did my job, I usually just put my head down and walked off. I did what I was supposed to do.
So
That
you
was
weren't
one I actually reacted to.
so you weren't the Caucasian version of like Hector Neris.
No, I was not.
You were like coming off the mound and
Yeah.
just
I
going.
played it. I think his name was Steve Klein, that left-handed pitcher, used to, react to everything. And everybody goes, "Oh, look how big of a competitor he is." That's not competition. That's just him not being able to control his emotions.
That's early on in my coaching career as a junior high girls basketball coach, highly competitive sport,
Highly competitive.
8-2, a lot of
Hey,
eights.
the girls can be mean,
Look,
man. I
look,
was a believe it or not, I was a referee when I was in the minor leagues. That's what I did in the off season. Yeah, and I'll tell you, the boys wouldn't touch each other, but the girls, man, they were
would
mean.
go at it. They were no. Actually, I have a big announcement. I'm stepping back into the coaching ring. I'll be coaching girls basketball at my junior high.
Curling? You're gonna do curling?
No, basketball, not curling.
Basketball. Okay.
Basketball, yes, sir. But like I do want to get to my JV question for you, but I want to save that till the end. John Singleton has really been earning his playing time. And if you would have told me, or someone would have told you at the beginning of the year, John Singleton's going to get signed by the Astros and he's going to be a part
make
of
the team.
Make the team.
He had to make the team out of spring training.
That's right. Make the team in 2024. And he's not only going to contribute for maybe a few games, he's going to contribute all season long and do a darn good job of it. Now, look at this. His last 30 games, he's 20 for 77, hitting 260, 341, 519 with an 860 OPS. In his last 7 games, he's got like a 13 something OPS. I mean, John Singleton has just done the job. This is a big story because when the playoffs get here, the Astros can use someone like a John Singleton, and the playoffs sometimes, and a lot of times, end up being about the unsung hero.
Oh, of course. I call it the Mark Lemke effect.
Oh,
I don't know if anybody remembers Mark Lemke.
I remember
early 90s. He played second base for the Braves.
How tall was he?
He wasn't a bit, maybe 5'8", 5'9", maybe. Maybe 5'9" might be stretching it.
Yeah. Okay.
He was built pretty good. I mean, he wasn't just a little skinny nothing.
Right.
He could hit. That was really what he was known for, was his bat. Wasn't a great defensive player. But in the 1991 World Series, that was the worst to first World Series. Both teams in 1990 were the worst team in their respective leagues. Wow. The Atlanta Braves, and I think both teams may have lost 100 games against the Minnesota Twins.
Wow.
Well, we go to a 7th game, okay, and I don't know if anybody remembers, but we had a dueling shutout, I think, go into the 10th inning of the 7th game of the World Series.
Wow.
I pitched pretty well in that World Series. I actually pitched in that game, actually got carried off of the mound because of a back issue. But if the Atlanta Braves win that game and win the World Series, Mark Lemke would have been the World Series MVP. I mean, he was a beast. He had done it all. And one of the best signs I ever have seen was in Minnesota when we go back up there. Now, this is another one of those situations. The Astros had one of these that no road team won a game.
Wow.
On the road. Yeah, so no road team won a game. So everybody all home, and Minnesota had home field advantage. They had the 4th game. They won game 7. But when we went back to Minnesota for game 6 and 7, there was a sign and a big one, and they showed it on television many, many times. And it was, "What is a Lemke?" And I just, obviously, I'm telling the story. I remember it
Right.
vividly. But yeah, it's usually because you bear down so much on the big guys in the middle,
Mm,
the superstar players. Because a lot of times, those are not the guys. Barry Bonds, until, late in his career in the postseason, he was an out. I mean, I
yeah.
remember facing him in Pittsburgh with Atlanta. You remember there was no divisional series back then. It was
Right.
just LCS, and you go straight to the World Series.
Right.
Um, Barry didn't do anything, and the reason why was because he swung at everything. You didn't have to on strike. If you lifted up his arm, he was swinging. Just make sure you don't throw it down the middle. Um, but a lot of times the superstar players are the ones that have the asterisk beside their name that say, okay, this dude can't beat us. And so you bear down. And a lot of times it's the sixth hole hitter, the seventh hole hitter. They're coming up with runners in scoring position and game on the line. And now somebody has to face them. And when you have to throw a major league hitter strikes, they've got a much better chance of squaring it up and doing damage.
Exactly. We do have a question for
Mhm.
you from Mr. Jay Thunder. Um, who was your favorite player that you pitched against? Or
Oh, goodness.
um, you know what? I don't know, like who did you like to face? And then maybe would you mind telling us maybe a hitter that was known as being a good hitter that you seem to have their number? Would you mind sharing something like
Well, um, so probably the best hitter, well, one of the best hitters we've ever seen was Tony Gwynn, but I had some success left on left. I think Tony went 1 for 11 or something like that off of me, and it was a single up the middle, of course, a single. But Tony usually those type guys were usually the guys I had a tough time against. The more contact hitters, they didn't have a lot of swing and miss. I loved pitching. A lot of times I pitched against, the big middle of the lineup left-handed hitters. Now I wasn't a left-handed specialist, but it usually took a left-handed hitter to get me in the game. So, guys like Daryl Strawberry, Mo Vaughn, some of the big left-handed hitters. And I didn't mind facing those guys. If I made a mistake, yes, they could hit the ball. But if I made pitches, they were up there trying to do damage. So they were letting it fly, you know. So those would be the guys that I enjoyed the most just because I felt like I was one of the best and I wanted to face the best. And so threw pretty hard when I was young and all that good stuff, all full of myself. So go out there, let it eat at the top of the zone and see if you could catch up. But there were guys that I had a tough time. Probably the guy that I had the most difficulty with was a left-handed hitter, and it was Bobby Abreu
wow.
when it with Philadelphia. And I think he hit just shy of 500 off me and a substantial number of at bats. I walked him. I mean, he had damage against me. He was just one of those dudes that it seemed like every time I put the ball in the heart of the plate, he was going to square it up. And just he owned me. Happens.
It does happen, and that's why baseball is so difficult. But what's not difficult is grabbing a Back to the Bullpen t-shirt from our guy Mark at Ram Shirts. You can order yours today. Go grab the QR code or go to ramshirts.com, look in their store, and look for Back to the Bullpen. You can order a shirt. You'll look great in it. For the next Astros game, wear your Back to the Bullpen shirt. Why not? And look, also Ever Cruz. I would show you my haircut, but my hair's a little messed up. But I recently got my hair cut and my beard trimmed with Ever. My son got his mop chopped because it was out of control. We went there and we got our discount. I just said, "Hey, I'm here from Backs of the Bullpen." He's like, "I know you," and gave us a sweet cut. Got us all edged up there.
Wait, are you
Nice.
sure? I heard a rumor that he actually charged you an extra 10%.
Well, I did give him a tip, so it kind of canceled out the
There
tip.
you go. There you go.
Yeah, but
Seabiscuit the third, right?
exactly. So we do have one more question for you, and then we'll
Yeah.
move on. How fast could you throw? What was your highest velocity pitch?
Okay.
I know you're not
I get this question a lot.
okay.
How hard did you throw? And my usual answer is, well, it depends on the day.
Mm.
Now I'm a different generation than what you see now. You know,
Right.
these guys, they go back to back a few times, not very often. They rarely go 3 days in a row, never go 4 or 5 days in a row. Well, you know, back in the day, if you didn't pitch in the game, they didn't even really count you pitching. So if I'd pitched a few days in a row, you know, I'm probably low 90s, maybe a 93 or something like that. The hardest I think I've ever seen was maybe 97.
Mm.
And if I did that, it was only a few times. I didn't spend any time there. Um, but it was, you know, it just depends. It just depended on the day. If I had some rest, then maybe I threw a little bit harder. But my job wasn't to throw hard. My job was to get hitters out, execute pitches and get hitters out.
Okay.
And so that was my approach. Now, yes, when I was young, when I early in my career, not a whole lot of finesse in my game. I was letting it eat, letting it fly every
Right.
single solitary time. A little later in my career, you know, I did still throw hard, but it wasn't necessarily, you know, grunting and snorting and snot flying every pitch, just most every pitch. So, you know, it was, uh, and then even towards the end of my career, I still threw the ball okay, but yeah, I was trying to uh, pitch more than just kind of grip it and rip it and let it fly.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense because like you said, you were a part of a different era in baseball and literally from era to era, from decade to decade, even maybe not even decades, Mike. I mean, it could be a matter of 2 or 3 seasons how
Sure.
things change over time, especially now with them trying to change rules and everything else. We won't get into that. But let's move forward. The road ahead. The Astros are looking at a 3-game set with the Angels.
Hmm.
Then they have a 3-game set at San Diego. So they're on the West Coast. And then they come back home. The Angels for 4 games, Seattle for 3, and then the Guardians for 3.
Yeah.
I've always said this. Now, right now, the Rangers are behind the Mariners 2-4. It is in the 7th inning. So it is the top of the 7th. There are 2 outs, and if the Rangers can come back and win, then that will keep the Astros like 4.5 games up.
Yeah.
Uh,
As we speak right this second, they are 4 games up.
4 games.
There is
So
a half game in that Seattle Mariners game against the Rangers. So
see, this is
it's either gonna be 3.5 or 4.5.
my philosophy is this, Mike. If we get to the Seattle series and we're up by 6 games and you win at least one of those games, you should be able to close out the season with that.
To tell you
I
the truth, they should be able to do it now. I
I
mean, yes,
well, they
it's
should have because they played
yes.
the A's. They should have beat the A's.
Well, but you know what I always say, Brett. It's
Yeah.
not who you play, it's when you play them. And the A's have been playing very good baseball. Okay. You can't look at their record and go, oh, these guys are this many games under 500. They stink. No, you got to look at what have you done for me lately sport. And right now, the A's are a team that you don't want to play if there's games that you have to win.
Well,
You know, because they have been beating teams at a pretty consistent clip recently.
in 2022, and the Astros won the World Series, the Orioles were terrible,
Mhm.
and the Orioles swept them. And I remember saying, good thing the Orioles aren't in the playoffs.
Right.
I would say this, good thing the Oakland A's aren't in the playoffs. Can you imagine some wild rule? And I don't want to give Rob Manfred any ideas. But can you imagine them like, hey, let's do a lottery of the worst teams and let's see if one team can make
Yeah.
it in. And
Get a
if it was-
couple more postseason teams.
Well, I mean, look, the other day, I forget who we were playing. They're like, yeah, we want to F some shit up. Like we want to like screw some people up, and it is just, you're right. The Oakland A's, I knew were going to come in, but Mike, when you look at their lineup, their offense is not a bad line. They
No.
got young.
Yeah.
Rooker's wearing that number 25. I remember 25. That was Mark McGuire's number. That
Mhm.
was part of the Bass brothers. And speaking of that, on October 5th, Dude, Jose Canseco's doing a home run derby with Antonio Brown, Johnny Manziel. They've brought in Josh Reddick. They've got King of JUCO, and I'll be covering that. There might be some other people I know that might be there.
Maybe there might
unconfirmed,
be some tired old left-hander throwing BP.
some unconfirmed, maybe, possibly. So I don't want to, I didn't want to put someone out there and then things not happen. But just saying, there might be some other people you might know that I'm familiar with and I'm connected to that might be out there. But Constellation Field, they're actually, I will link it on our Instagram tonight. I will also put a post on our YouTube page where you can get tickets to go to that at Constellation Field. It's going to be fun. But this stretch, Mike, is not that bad of a stretch.
No.
I know it's the Padres. The Padres have been kind of up and down. You've got 7 against the Angels. Now, I don't know that I put the Angels in the same category with the A's because the A's have been hot. But these are the kinds of games that these guys on these teams, they like to try to mess other people's fortune
Sure.
up.
I didn't have to do it a whole lot in my career, thank goodness, but there were a few times I had to play spoiler. The team that I was on, we were just playing out the string. And listen, it is a miserable way to play baseball, knowing that you have no chance, that
Correct.
all you're doing is just playing out the rest of the schedule. So you're looking for motivation. And hey, knocking somebody else out of the playoffs is a big motivation. You're always looking for something to hang your hat on. And being a spoiler is definitely one of those things. So you can't just say, oh, well, this team stinks, I'm just going to throw my hat out there, even if they're not playing very well. Right. A lot of times, you play to the level of your opponents. And when you're a team that stinks, yeah, you can absolutely get up to play for a team that's trying to make the postseason.
Exactly. No, that's true. John says don't take any team lightly. Look,
absolutely, John.
I was like, surely the Astros can sweep the A's, right? Well, I was wrong. I spoke way too soon. But Justin Verlander, you and I haven't talked about it. I reached out to Ben Verlander. He's been on Locked On Astros. He's kind of become a friend, and I said, hey, is it okay if I share your take? I shared his take on Locked On Astros, and he basically said the way Justin Verlander's pitching right now, he would not you wouldn't want him on the roster, but he still has 3 starts left. And if he can get 2 of those 3 starts right, then you want that experience. You want the knowledge of the hitters. You want that competitiveness on the mound. My question to you is there any universe in baseball, the unwritten rules, the seniority, the veteranship, where you see that Justin Verlander is ever left off of this playoff roster as a starter?
Sure. I think there absolutely is. And to tell you the truth, I think JV may be one of the type of player that would say, dude, I am stinking right now. Do not put me in the game. Now, he is still Justin Verlander. He's still a first ballot Hall of Famer, and he can always rise to the occasion. But the issues that he's having, he hasn't just had a bad game. He's had a few bad games, and he's been hit. That's the biggest thing. If he's not throwing strikes, he's walking. Yeah, he had one start that, he gave up some runs, but there were some walks in there, and then he gave up a hit. And you go, okay, well, if he had a little bit better command, his last time out, he just got it. He just got his lunch money stolen. I mean, they hit the ball. Now, is that a location problem? Of course it is, because I think the stuff is still good. But you also don't like the way he's talking when I'm trying to figure it out. My mechanics are off, timing and this, that, and the other, and I'm not putting the ball where I want to. So, he's doing everything he can to get right, as you would expect from a future Hall of Famer. It's just the matter is, can he make those, and how big of an adjustments are there? Now, we're not talking about him, changing his mechanics that he's been using all of his life. No, these are not wholesale changes. And some of it is just confidence. Yes, even for a guy that has a resume like Justin Verlander, confidence can wane just like it can for anyone else. And right now the confidence is low. I mean, I don't think I'm saying anything, overly controversial because he hasn't pitched well. When you don't
Right.
pitch well, like I said earlier, this is a what have you done for me lately? And right now, Justin hasn't done very good. It's great that he still has 3 starts left, that he has time to write it. And if he does write it, now you got to make some hard decisions because
Yeah.
that Hall of Famer in your lineup, in your rotation, makes a big difference. So I hope that JV does what he's supposed to do, figures it out, and then puts the pressure on, Joe Espada and Dana Brown and Josh Miller to make some really tough decisions because in the first round, you probably only need 3 starters.
Yeah, and we got people asking like, who are your top 3, and I've said earlier, and I've said this publicly many times, my 3 starters automatically would be Valdez 1, Brown 2, Kikuchi 3. Those would be my 3 starters. I think Ronel Blanco and Arrighetti easily fit into the bullpen because Arrighetti and Ronel, I mean, look, all these guys come up in the system and they do the piggyback thing. So they all have that bullpen experience.
Right.
What did you see happen with Hunter Brown when he was a rookie in 2022? He got shifted from a starter doing a good job into some key bullpen moments in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And
he's got big power stuff. And that's what the Astros saw when they called him up was, hey, if he's throwing strikes, this is one of those situations that no one has seen him in the big leagues. So if he's throwing strikes with that power stuff, it's going to play. I think of, Blanco and Arrighetti. I think if you look at the stuff, I think you probably take Arrighetti over Blanco. Not because neither one of them deserve it. Blanco, where would they be if Blanco didn't have, the first 4 months of the regular season that he did, which was,
right.
he was
Unreal.
the best pitcher they had in the first half. But Arrighetti has that, the sweeping breaking ball. He's got the mid to high 90s fastball. And to tell you the truth, if he gets into the postseason, it may even take another step forward. It may tick up even one more, throw a little bit harder. So you'll have to wait and see. But, the 4th starter position is still open. Now, would that be if Justin is able to right the ship? You're going to put JV in the 4 hole? That'd be a tough conversation. But it also has to do with and how you sell it to the pitchers. Excuse me. Is, I would rather you put pitching on the road, or I'd rather you pitching at home. The matchup, you look at matchup. So it's not just a matter of setting your rotation
number, right,
and just going forward.
Right.
There's a lot of information. In this day and age, the data is everywhere. Analytics are everywhere. All that goes into how you set up your rotation.
Let's just say, JV gets to the point where he feels like he's just come out of the funk, right?
Right.
If you put him 3rd or 4th in a first round series in the ALDS, it's not likely for his spot to come back up. So if he pitches well, he gains confidence for the next series. If he doesn't pitch well, you don't have to worry about going back to him if he's the game 1 starter.
Yeah.
That's what I would think. I would think everyone's like, are y'all forgetting Spencer Arrighetti? We're not counting him out. But in a 3-man rotation, I think Arrighetti gets the bump. I think in a 4-man rotation, if JV's not in there, like you said, Arrighetti gets it over Blanco.
Yeah.
If you're going with a legit 5-man, JV's going to be in there.
You're not going to go 5.
Yeah. No, I know.
4,
I'm just saying.
4 is the top.
So, 4 is the top. And so, but maybe when we get a little bit closer, we can just talk about a hard and fast conversation about the roster, because we're going to have to figure out what pitchers are going to be up here relief wise, hitters, position players, all that stuff, the health of the players.
I know that's a conversation for another time, but
Exactly.
one thing we have to remember is they do have the ability to change the roster in between rounds.
That's right.
Which when I was playing, you didn't. The only way you could change the roster is if somebody got hurt.
Right.
So you weren't able, once you set your playoff roster, as long as everybody's healthy. That's your roster all the way through the World Series if you make it.
Exactly. And someone said, who'd be the seventh man in a 7-game series? You don't have a seventh man. I don't know. Not pitching wise. But
actually, that would be a pretty good rotation. If you have a 7-man rotation and that's the dude that's going to pitch game 7, he's probably legit.
That's you would probably have to have Scooble. I mean, you just go down the list of the best pitchers and throw them all on one team. But I do believe that the Astros make the playoffs. I know you've said all along not to worry, even when I panicked. See, I didn't think I was panicking. You're like, Brett, why are you panicking? I'm like, I'm not panicking. And like, you totally are panicking. I fell into the fray. I fell into all of the.
That's right. You went over the dark side.
I did. I mean, I try to be. It's so funny. Like, I'll try to be objective and level-headed, and it will come across as negative. And I always get the comment on X. Always positive with a question mark. Come on. It's not all puppy dogs and rainbows every time, it's, there is some stuff you have to go through.
Yeah.
But the Astros, if they win the ALDS, and I think what we need to do is let's see where this team is next week, and let's see where they are in the division race next week. And we'll start looking at different matchups in the first round. And is there a favorable matchup? Is this team immune to whoever they play because of their playoff history?
Yeah.
Because I really think, Mike, in reality, an ALCS for an 8th straight year is very, very real. And a month and a half ago, we would have not been saying that.
Oh, it's absolutely realistic. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, what is the ultimate goal? The ultimate goal is to get to the dance. Because once you're there, anything can happen. And we've seen it. We've seen it in positive ways. We've seen it teams that have been one of the best teams in baseball history get knocked out very easy. Number 1 seeds get knocked out all the time. And we've seen teams that had no business making the playoffs get hot at the right time and then run the gauntlet. So, yeah, once you get there, once you get to October, all bets are off.
Now, are you doing any more series to close out the season?
Actually, I have one more series that's going to be this weekend. So okay. I'll be doing all 3 games for the Angel series, and that will be my last regular season series for Space City Home Network. But and then as far as the playoffs, I don't know. That schedule is not going to be made until the last minute. So,
I can tell you this, you can hear Mike here regardless. So we will be here, and you and I haven't talked about it. We haven't put together our game plan, but we'll do some different things over the playoffs. And look, I think it'd be even valuable to talk about other series too, because those are storylines that are going to.
I'll let people know. I know we have a bunch of people listening right now. Brett and I have not talked about this at all, but it's not going to be just an Astros podcast going forward into the playoffs. We're going to critique and we're going to analyze maybe all the games, but at least talk about all the series, because ultimately, if the Astros go all the way, you never know who's going to be on the other side. So we need to continue to keep up with those other teams.
Yeah, definitely. And I look forward to doing that with you, because I haven't really gotten to do that because I've been so laser focused on our home team. And I think this year's playoff, for whatever.
Well, we're going to have to keep an eye on you going forward, because you got this whole basketball coaching thing. We don't want to make sure that doesn't take away from your, as you said, laser focus.
Well, that doesn't start till November, so we're safe. So it starts after, I think, the World Series is over.
So, yeah, folks, you'll have to pay attention. You'll have to pay. Oh, I'm getting an Amber Alert. You're going to have to pay attention in the off season, so we can get those updates on how Coach Wheelhouse is doing with those little teenage girls.
Dude, all I'll say is this: the last time I coached, we were 12-1, and we lost to Deer Park in the title game. And if I play Deer Park again in the title game, They will not beat me for a third
He's
straight.
going for blood.
I am. We're going deer hunting is what I say. We're going deer hunting. It's going to be fun. But hey, man, thank y'all so much for tuning in. This has been another great show, Mike. It's good to have you back. I know life has been going every which way for both of us, but it was good to finally talk. And hey, let's talk again midweek next week.
Sure.
The Astros are. Hopefully they've gained more ground on the Mariners. And y'all make sure y'all watch watch Mike, say hi to him, snap a picture of the TV, say, man, I'm watching you on X or whatever.
There you go.
Tell your friends about Back to the Bullpen because, look, we don't grow unless you let other people know that we're
That's
here.
right.
So for myself and Ram Shirt Studios and everybody here at Locked On, here Locked On Back to the Bullpen, I'm joking. Back to the Bullpen. Y'all have a good one.
Adios.
Bye.
I'm looking to the bullpen to bring my lefty in. Keep the lead and make your team look pedestrian. It's in your wheelhouse, we'll swing for the fence. You know it's money around here, and I ain't talking expense. Strike one, heat a low in the way you can't hit it. You know you wanna start a rally, but you better forget it. Strike two, off speed, same spot, your car looking. Get ready at the plate, this time you're not cooking. Strike three, swinging out of the zone. You ain't even touch it first. Tell me how they gonna drive you home. Walk you back.